Hey, what's up guys? My name's Fons. I'm one of the baristas here at Kiln Coffee Bar, and we're bringing you a V60 tutorial today. We've had a lot of questions lately on how we make pour overs here at the shop and how you guys can recreate them at home. So we decided to just go ahead and make a video on it. So let's go over everything we're going to need. You're gonna need a bag of beans, of course. You're gonna need a kettle to boil your water, preferably a gooseneck kettle. It's gonna help a lot with control, and I'll go over that a little bit more into detail. You're gonna need something to brew your coffee into. A simple mug from your home works. We use these servers here at the shop. It keeps the coffee hot. You're gonna need a V60. We sell these here at the shop. You're gonna need a V60 V2 paper filter. We also carry these here at the shop. You're gonna need a scale, which is very, very important. And you're going to need a timer. And the timer on your cell phone works perfectly fine. So once you guys have all of these things ready to go, I'll show you how to set them up, and let's go over the process.
All right guys, so now that we know everything that we're going to need to make a V60 cup at home, let's go over how to set it up and how to start this process. First thing we're going to do is we're going to put our filter inside of our V60. You'll notice that these cone-shaped filters have one side that's kind of hard. It's got a bunch of lines along the end. You're just going to fold that over. That's going to allow that filter to sit flush inside of the V60. Next, you're going to rinse that filter out with boiling water. This is going to do a couple of things. It's going to get rid of that paper taste. It's going to get rid of that bleach chemical taste that sometimes gets left behind. And it's going to heat up our cup or our server that we're brewing our coffee into. Once you do that, give it a couple spins with the water. You're going to dump that water out of whatever you're brewing into. You don't want to leave that behind. It's just going to taste gross. The next step is to zero out your scale and add your coffee grounds. Now let's talk ratios. Here at the shop, we use a 1:15 or a 1:17 ratio, depending on the coffee we're using. That means for every 1 gram of coffee, we're going to add 15 grams of water, or 1 gram of coffee per 17 grams of water. What this does is it allows you to create a recipe, a control, a test, something to have consistency when you brew your coffee. Craft coffee is a science, and if we don't have a baseline, we're gonna have a different cup of coffee every time we make coffee. So 1:15 is important. Grind size for a V60, you're gonna want about a medium to medium coarse. If it's too fine, you're gonna get sludge, and it's gonna take you about 5 minutes to brew up a cup of coffee. And if it's too coarse, that water's gonna go right through, and you're gonna have a 2 to 2.5 minute cup of coffee. Our target time, it's 3.5 to 4 minutes. So now that we've zeroed out our scale and we have our coffee in our V60, we gave it a little shake to kind of flatten it out. We're gonna do what's called a bloom. Now blooming is infusing your coffee grounds with boiling water to allow that reaction to start happening, allow that gas to escape your coffee, and allow these grounds to get saturated. This is gonna make sure that some of that bitterness that gets trapped with the carbon inside the coffee from roasting escapes and doesn't go into a cup of coffee. The blooming process typically lasts between 30 to 45 seconds, and I've seen people do it up to a minute if they're using more than 20 grams of coffee. We here at the shop like to do it between 30 to 35 seconds. Now your next pour is going to go up to 200 grams of water. So you're adding about 150 to 160 grams of water additionally on top of your bloom amount. So this is going to be one of multiple pours. Now how many pours you do is really up to you, and I don't think it really affects your coffee that much. What does affect the coffee is how hard you're pouring your water in there. This brings me to my comment about having a gooseneck kettle and it offering control. Gooseneck kettles allow you to do things like knock coffee grounds off the edge without having to pour directly into your filter, and really slow down your pour or speed up your pour depending on how you like to make your coffee. Craft coffee is all about consistency. Now, you'll notice here when I start pouring again, you're gonna ask yourself, well, when am I supposed to pour? At what time, at what minute marker am I adding more water? You should go on a visual cue. When your coffee grounds are exposed, when you start to see those coffee grounds coming up above the water and you see them form around the edge, that's your visual cue. That's when you pour more water. And here at the shop, we like to do short, small pours after our initial pour. This allows us to really control the flow, really control the brew process, and not cause a lot of agitation within our coffee by constantly pouring water in there. We end up with maybe 3 to 4 pours total. Now what I'm doing here is called a Scott Rayo shake or a Rayo spin. What it is you just grab your V60 and you give it a little swirl. Now this is an important part of this process. What it's doing is it's knocking those grounds down into the V60, down towards the extraction cone point, and it's creating a flat bed. That's exactly what your gooseneck kettle does as well. We are pushing those grounds back down underwater and allowing them to brew. If you're finishing your coffee and you have massive amounts of coffee stuck to your filter around the edge like a nuclear fallout, then you're doing it wrong. That means that those coffee grounds are no longer contributing to your brewing process. You want those coffee grounds underwater the entire time without exceeding your ratio. So we allow ourselves 300 grams of water because we're using a 1:15 ratio here on 20 grams of coffee. Now, as you notice, as we're beginning to drain here and we're on our final drain, you're gonna see that flat bed. It's beautiful. What that tells me is that I just brewed a perfect cup of coffee. A flatbed tells me that I've had even extraction and that all of my coffee contributed to that brewing process. This is something that takes practice. This is something that you're not going to get right away. But if you just remember, when you do your pours, you do them slow, you do them short, go around the edge, work yourself into the middle, use the Rayo spin to knock them all down, you're going to have a great cup of coffee. And now we just pour it into our mug and enjoy. Thank you for watching. If you have any more questions, feel free to come by the shop.